Andy, I want to hear more, especially in the wake of what happened to Charlie Kirk about, quote, Trantifa, because when Charlie Kirk was shot dead, he was being asked a question about transgender identifying mass shooters. And you posted recently, I've been warning for a long time that leftist trans people are being radicalized openly into carrying out acts of ultraviolence. All of the trans propaganda is about disemboweling, slitting throats, and shooting dead those who oppose their agenda. If you could flesh out some of what you see as the link here, that would be great, especially in light of, obviously, we know what happened, sadly, in Minneapolis at the back-to-school mass, where two little kids were shot in a mass shooting. Many people were injured. Those kids passed. And then you have, shortly after that, Tyler Robinson shooting Charlie Kirk, connected apparently to a trans roommate / lover. Both of them seem to be into the world of, God forbid I say this, furries. What's going on with this?
So 5 years ago, during the BLM-Antifa riots, I immediately noticed that there was something weird going on in that disproportionately those who were being arrested in Portland, as well as other cities. I mentioned Portland just because the riots went on for so long every night I would request the public records of who were being arrested, names, accused crimes, and photos. And I would look into them, and then I was finding, but disproportionately they were gender diverse, I'll say that. And that is an umbrella term to include people who are non-binary and trans and any of these identities around gender. Some nights it was like 15% of arrestees who were, and it would go up as high as a third. It's like, this is a really interesting phenomenon. I mentioned it briefly in my book Unmasked at that time. It was just sort of like not a passing observance, but it was like, hey, there's a bit more to that. So Antifa, and I would say the radical left, they are very context and time specific in how they mobilize people and radicalize people and recruit. So for more than half a decade, they had BLM as the messaging, amplifying lies about racial grievances, lies about police brutality, using that with references to history, slavery, and Jim Crow era to really try to radicalize many liberals. And I've seen it so many times in those who have been convicted at the riots, this sort of pipeline, like beginning of their university, they were campaigning for Democrats and all that, and then they would join the DSA, and then eventually they would join Antifa, like this gradual moving further and further left. And it would start with those who are supporters of Democrats. But BLM has had some catastrophic PR moments in the scandals financially, even to the point like where those who are sympathetic and supportive of BLM, they heard about how the money was wasted and used to really just enrich organizers. Like there's been no better outcome for Black people in any of these cities where BLM was very active, in cities where city council would defund police or cut back funding on police who support racial justice causes. It's like violent crimes went up, more Black people died. So the grievance that Antifa and the violent far left have really focused on has been around trans. And they will say that, like in the last 5 years, the efforts by various conservative states to pass laws that would limit or ban transitioning of minors in the state, for example, they would bring that up. Protests and criticisms of so-called family-friendly drag events, they would view that as an event. And the lies they use is that there's a genocide going on. So it's the themes of the BLM lies are it's similar to those BLM lies. It's just now the target of the victim is different. So talk about trans genocide. And
trans people being killed for being trans, and hate crimes against the transgender community, which is not what the metrics really show.
Yeah, so like back in 2019, I remember every year the Human Rights Campaign and many Democrats kept bringing up this thing about Trans Day of Remembrance because there was trans genocide going on. And I would look into that, like there would be an average of between 25 to 35 trans homicide a year in the US, in a country of 360 million. So with a number that small, I could actually dig into each case, like, okay, case by case, what was the circumstances? Over and over, it was a Black sex worker where the suspect or the convict of the murder was a Black male. And these were people engaged in street sex work. And that is a type of work that is dangerous for anybody involved in it.
Just extremely sad stories too.
Yeah. So, but that wasn't evidence of a genocide happening, but nevertheless, it's about narrative, and those lies have been mainstreamed. And not just mainstream, but the reaction from the trans activists has been to urge violence against those who they view are against trans rights. And they're not subtle about it at all. At all of these trans demonstrations and protests, you'll see that they will often brandish weapons, carry weapons. They'll wear signs, they'll wear shirts and hold placards and signs that say things like protect trans kids, and then there's an image of a knife. Or
the Minnesota Attorney General, right? Wasn't that what the Minnesota Attorney General had?
Lieutenant Governor. Okay. That's right. She wore that shirt with the knife on it at a presser announcing that Minnesota was a sanctuary state for trans kids. And there was no social pushback at all. So when you create this environment where that type of violent extremism is normalized, you're going to have people that celebrate assassinations, as we see. And going back to like that data of like right versus left violence, I think part of that research needs to look into how welcomed is those acts, those killings, because like that is indicative, I think, of something much more dangerous of where the culture is moving in, because there's always going to be isolated incidents of hate crimes or violent homicides that have some type of hate motive. But like if those individuals who carry out those ideologically, politically motivated attacks are celebrated and treated as heroes within the wider culture, like that's the bigger WTF, what's going on. And I don't think the right at this point has a cult of personality around killers. Some people make comparisons with Kyle Rittenhouse. It's not fair to compare Kyle Rittenhouse with Tyler Robinson, for example. Completely different scenarios. Rittenhouse was viewed as a hero because he was somebody, a teenage boy who was under attack and under physical attack by adults and fired in self-defense. And he was put through the fire. I mean, he was prosecuted and went all the way to trial, and he was facing murder charges and many, many years in prison. And he was acquitted. It wasn't somebody... I struggle to think of examples on the right where somebody who's assassinated for a right-wing cause has been treated as a hero.
Are you looking to support more made in the USA manufacturing this year? Like I am, definitely. Whether it's home decor, clothing, or furniture, it's become extremely difficult to find high-quality products that aren't made overseas. A recent Forbes report revealed that annual earnings for small businesses across the US have dropped by over 75% just since 2023. Small businesses in this country are struggling to stay afloat, and with the likes of Amazon and Target dominating the market, it's no wonder. Basically, any small business owner here in the US will tell you the same thing. That's where A Warehouse comes in, your one-stop shop for artisanal home goods made exclusively by small businesses. With hundreds of products to choose from, they're deeply committed to supporting American manufacturers. Their easy-to-navigate online marketplace lets you browse a wide range of independent makers, and you can feel good knowing that your purchase supports real people and small family-run businesses. A Warehouse believes that true luxury isn't about fancy labels or big brand names. It's about the dedication, creativity, and care that goes into every product. Help A Warehouse hit their goal of supporting over 100 small businesses this year. Head to awarehouseshop.com and use code PARTY for 15% off your first order. That's awarehouseshop.com, code PARTY.